So, welcome.
Thanks so much, Diane, and it's great to be here. I think the last time I was in Timaru, I was driving in a demolition derby at the Speedway about 1994. One of the scariest and most fun things at the same time I've ever done. So, anyway, it's great to be here. Fantastic to see these faces. And seeing you here reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So what am I doing? About 3.5 years ago, I was having a phone conversation with a friend of mine in Dunedin. We're playing spotters from way back. And the question was, do you think any of the original jet fleets of our airlines exist anywhere in the world anymore? And we're talking aircraft now that are up around 50, 60 years old. So the anticipated answer was no, they're all gone. But we looked into it and we discovered that there was one of each left. One original teal Lockheed Electra, TEB, left. One original Air New Zealand DC-8, NZC, left. One original NAC 737 NAD, left. One original Air New Zealand DC-10 Series 30 NZS, left. And one Air New Zealand 747, the last one they got, 400, left. And then we also found on top of that the original Mount Cook Airlines Hawker Siddeley 748 CWJ is still in existence as well. So that is, and you'll know if you've been in the aviation world, that is a miracle in and of itself, because the industry is not kind to retired airliners. They usually go to the desert, they get pulled to pieces with a horrible digger, hydraulic digger, and I think the joke is they're made into beer cans. Well, that's what we expected for these aircraft. So finding out that there was one copy of each of our original fleets delivered to our airlines left in the world, it was like, well, what should we do about that? Should we leave it at that, or should we do something? After all, and I'm sure you'll agree, these machines are artifacts of our transportation and social history. Big time. They built this country. When you think about the Electra, took us out of the flying boat days and spread the wings out through the Pacific, first taste of jet power. The DC-8 broke the tyranny of distance for New Zealanders. You could fly your own airline across the Pacific, up to the US, up to Asia, Singapore. It was a great leap forward. The DC-10, first wide body, it really sort of brought on what is now our very successful tourism industry. The 737 game-changed travel in New Zealand. Auckland, Wellington, what? 45, 50 minutes. Christchurch, 1.5, 2 hours away. The country shrank with that. Of course, the 748 opened up the tourism business around Queenstown, Mount Cook, that area. Absolutely pioneered it. Without that aircraft, that would never have happened. And we all know that probably most Kiwis living today who went on an OE probably did so on a 747. So that lives in our history as well. So we decided these aircraft were worth saving and worth returning home if we could. Seemed like a big job. Next task was to find out who owned them, where exactly they were, and how we would get to these people and try and do deals with them to secure, first of all, the aircraft so they weren't destroyed, and then try and negotiate prices on what they'd sell them for and work it out how we could buy them and get them back to New Zealand. So when you put it like that, it doesn't sound like too much, but it is a herding cats exercise. So in 2017, I decided that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, that if we missed this opportunity, we'd never get it again. There would be no other aircraft that'd be destroyed. And quite frankly, and it's as simple as this, future generations of New Zealanders would then miss out on understanding how we built this country. I think we'd all agree, right? Yeah. We built this country with machines like this, and the stories of these machines, the people who flew them, the people who operated them, fixed them, any way connected to them, their stories are in these aircraft as well. So we preserve these aircraft, we preserve all those stories. So that was the starting point. In 2017, I launched a campaign called Bring Our Birds Home. And I did it because looking at who was out there and who sort of had this sort of knowledge, I didn't see anyone else who would do this except me. So I decided it's going to be me. And basically everything I've done in my professional world in communication and broadcasting and filming, I did aviation filming for Air New Zealand for quite a while. I've done a lot of video production and aviation around the world. I know how to communicate, I know how to make productions to interest people in particular subjects, this obviously included. And I had the connections around the world with people who could go and investigate the owners of these airframes, where they were left, some derelict, some still operating. We'll get into that in just a moment. And it's interesting to see, I had no knowledge in what I was doing at the time, that all that learned knowledge, that sum total of that knowledge, would put me in the best position to carry out a campaign like this. So it was not me, it's probably never going to be anybody, and because these are the last examples, this is a one shot, one roll of the dice exercise. So that's the context of the campaign that I launched. Bring our birds home. A lot of people say to me, is that something to do with conservation? But not those sort of birds. Big birds, real birds. Keep the screen on. In fact, I don't know how well you can see this. We're hoping to have a bigger monitor. But that picture there is one of our birds. That's NZC on the production line at Long Beach in California in March 1965. There it is right there. Pre-delivery, almost finished being built. I went and actually visited that facility a while back. They built the C-17 aircraft in there after Douglas cleared out, but there's one of our aircraft there. So how to start on a campaign like this? Well, the first thing to do, as I mentioned, was to find out where they were. And it's a really quite an interesting story about where these aircraft have ended up. Let's start with the oldest first. TB, the Electra. It's the last, I think we had 5 Electras. We lost one, and I believe we had a Qantas one that came in. But the last of 5 Electras, ironically, it's the only one of those older aircraft that's still flying. It's actually still flying, TB. It's a water bomber in Canada. And it's going to be operated for another 8 or so years. I'll bring up a picture of it for you so you can see. Still very much alive. Where are we? Here we are. There it is there. And that was photo was only taken about 1.5 years ago. It's owned by Buffalo Airways. They had a series on TV called Ice Pilots. And I have a very good relationship with that company now, so hopefully we'll get hold of that. That aircraft is still flying, and that is the oldest of the 6. I'll just move through them. The next one is the DC-8 NZC. Now we had 5, I think it was 5 original DC-8s. In the end we lost one, NZB at Mungry. Probably people would remember that. But NZC, here it is here, flying the Queen around the Pacific Islands just before the 1974 Commonwealth Games. And I can show you that aircraft now because I went up to Brazil and I filmed it and did the deal with the airport company. There she is there right now. Can you see that picture all right? That's sitting derelict at Manaus Airport in Brazil, up in the Amazon jungle. It's been there since 2003. It's a bit, worse for wear, as you can see. The left undercarriage leg has collapsed because they had an engine fire, a number 3 engine. On this last takeoff, landed heavy, broke the undercarriage, and it ended up towed to the side of the runway there in the sort of the derelict area. But it's in remarkably good condition metal-wise. I had my colleague from the Transport and Toy Museum in Wanaka, where these hopefully will end up eventually, come up with me. He's great at looking at artifacts, and we decided this was in pretty good shape. So it's obviously never going to fly again, but we have the engineering drawings to be able to take that apart. So that's me filming that aircraft from a helicopter August last year at Manaus, and we created a great relationship with the management of the airport company. And as soon as a court case involving the bankruptcy of the airline that operated that is complete, which is running through now, it'll be released and we can buy it. And then we'll set about organising a team of engineers, which have already signed up to dismantle that aircraft as per the production or engineering drawings, and we'll ship it back to New Zealand on a roll-on, roll-off ship. And how long it's going to take, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but there are freight companies that I've already talked to who are very interested in being involved in that. So I'll find a nice shot of that aircraft on the week of delivery to Peel Air New Zealand. There it is there. NZC brand new. June 1965, Marua Airport. Okay, so that's moving up in age now. So, next aircraft, who here was with NAC? Okay, you'll remember this aircraft. And you know, I always really like looking back at these old pictures because I thought that NAC livery with the red stripe and the godwit was a fantastic livery. It's one of the best 60s graphic arts livery I've seen. I've seen a lot of liveries. There's NAD on the ramp at Dunedin, I think in mid-70s, looking beautiful. Well, I'll show you NAD now. This is NAD sitting in a field in North Carolina now. There she is. The only original NAC 737 left. That is very historic because it flew the first commercial jet service in New Zealand, 8th of October 1968. So that's where it all started, right there. We have a very good relationship with the owner of this graveyard where it's sitting here. And we negotiated a price, and I'm hopeful that this will be the first airframe that we get back to New Zealand. Think about that. Think about how many people have flown in that plane up and down the country from 1968 to 1989. And you'll remember it if you're NAC on the ramp and probably even flown that aircraft yourselves. Warren Schrader, anyone remember Warren Schrader? He flew this aircraft to New Zealand. He was the delivery pilot for NAD. He's passed away, but I got to meet him and interview him a long time ago. He's a great guy. And already we've bought, I'll make this a bit larger, through our donations. I don't know if you can see this, but we've bought two JT8D Pratt & Whitney turbofan engines already. They're in storage in Mojave. We've got a great deal on those. They're actually operational engines. And we bought those to put on the airframe of NAD when it comes here. Also had, since this campaign's become international, I've had an offer from a company in Mojave, California, for all the control surfaces, all the flight instruments, seats, anything I want to put in an old 737 that can be provided. So you can imagine that airframe sitting in the field there can come back up looking like that NAC 737 on the ramp that I just showed you. That's NAD. Moving along. I just want to get everything in. So. Next aircraft is NZS DC-10. Now, I don't need to go on too much about the relevance of the DC-10 to the country. Obviously, there's Erebus. But there's also what it did. I wish I could show this to you bigger, but there's one of the old ads, Air New Zealand ads of the DC-10s in it. It built our tourism industry and took us all the way to London, Heathrow. That aircraft now is derelict at the international airport at Havana in Cuba. That's where it ended up. So we have a friend of mine, Steve Wilde, went to Cuba last year. There it is there, sitting at the airport. We have a relationship with the ambassador from Cuba and also with the head of their civil aviation now. Steve went and met him personally, and we're negotiating to have a price on this DC-10 airplane. It's possible this could fly again, I've been told. So friends in America are looking at ways that we can do this. FedEx are retiring DC-10s, this model. They've got 50 to retire in the next 2 years. So the parts department could be flown to this aircraft, and it's possible that it's cheaper to restore this to flying and fly it back to New Zealand. It may be cheaper to do that than actually pull it apart. It's a big job. People sort of laugh, but it's been done before, so it is possible. So this is the last DC-10 out of the, I think we had 8 in total, and this was delivered in 1976. There's a bit of history of this aircraft too. Captain Gordon Betty, remember that name, was flying this aircraft when a guy got lost over the Pacific in a Cessna. He was delivering it to one of the Pacific Islands. He got lost. Gordon Betty and his crew were flying NZS from Nandi to Auckland, heard the desperate radio calls, and I think the rest is history because Gordon and his team were navigators in the Air Force. They went back to sort of the old way of doing things and managed to guide him to a landing with only a few minutes fuel left. So that's quite an interesting bit of history related to that particular aircraft. So that's sitting in Cuba, and all the flight instruments are still in it. It's in actually very good condition, and that's been sitting there since 2001. It was operated by a French airline called AOM. They went bankrupt. Thank God for bankruptcies. We would be without bankruptcies. And they just left that aircraft there, and it's just sat there ever since. They use it for security training, and the issue is that the Cuban government has big problems with diplomatic relations with other countries, as you can imagine, and they have to train their own people on their own equipment. They can't send people off to other parts of the world to do that, so that's why they maintain this aircraft. So we're trying to work out a way where we can replace that airframe. And as I say, FedEx looks like a solution. They still operate DC-10s as freighters. They're essentially worthless as they retire. So I'm trying to engineer a situation where instead of flying one of their old DC-10s to Arizona or California, they fly it down there. We take the bits off it and try and make that one work, or just do a swap. But we're talking, and the fact that we're in at the levels of government required to get that done is good. So, next aircraft is the only remaining Air New Zealand 747. NBV was the registration of this aircraft when it left Air New Zealand service. It's the one that carried the Lord of the Rings, they call it the Frodo plane. I did try and get the first 747-200 that Air New Zealand got in 1980. I missed it by 3 weeks. It was derelict at Domodedovo Airport in Moscow, operated by an airline called Transaero. And I had Google Earth pictures of it, but it's hard to know when those pictures were taken, even when there's the timestamp on them, you can't be sure. So I ended up going to the Russian embassy. They made some inquiries. I got a phone call in the middle of the night from the guy who scrapped it. Unfortunately, he said, you missed it by 3 weeks. So that was a pity, because that really would have been something. But this aircraft is the last Air New Zealand delivered 419, 747. The rest have been scrapped. It's owned by a Florida company. It's operated by a Spanish airline. And when that is finished with, because they'll fly it right out of ours and then they'll retire it, that we can have first dibs on it. It's worth about 150,000 US dollars as a complete airframe retired. It's not a huge amount of money. That doesn't include engines. We could fly it back to New Zealand. To Christchurch, can't land it at Wanaka, obviously, too big, though they are talking about extending the runway there by 2025 if they go to the length that they're talking about, which we'll be able to land it there. In the meantime, it's got about another 3 to 5 years of operation in Spain. And it was interesting, you might have heard the Thomas Cook company went belly up. That aircraft flew a lot of the stranded Thomas Cook people home. I saw footage of it. So very recently there's footage of it flying. And the last aircraft, which came along a bit later because we didn't actually realise that this one still existed at all. We thought all the Mount Cook 748s had gone, but there is one left, CWJ, the first one that was delivered. There it is at the Farnborough Air Show before it was delivered in 1968 to Mount Cook. And people will know that aircraft fleet really built up the Queenstown Lakes Mount Cook tourism industry. And here it is now at Dhaka, Bangladesh. It was converted to a cargo carrier. Actually flew for, I think, their postal service, contracted their postal service. So those are the aircraft. So what are we intending to do? So when I started this campaign on social media, we've raised about $40,000 through social media now, and we're a registered charitable trust. I got early on a phone call from Jason Rhodes at the National Transport and Toy Museum in Wanaka. Not to be confused with the Warbirds Museum down there. This is right next to Wanaka Airport. They've got nearly 2,000 vehicles. He's up to 30 planes now. It's just an incredible collection. Anything you can think of vehicle-wise is there. They've just bought the artifacts from an aviation museum in Australia that's gone belly up. So he's up to 30 planes now. And he's got a huge toy collection which is drawing them in. You get about 70,000 visitors a year, and it's growing. So Jason called up and said, hey, look, can I be involved? And it came at just the right time. I said, yeah, of course you can be involved. I don't know if you can see that too well, but that's a picture of the museum. We can essentially put these artifacts on display at this museum over time. And we're going to start with the jet engines. I showed you those jet engines before. They're going to be coming over in about 2 months, and that will be the first part of our physical exhibition. They'll draw the people in because those are the engines that power New Zealand, and for 40 years. And we've got great archive footage and everything to go with it. And that will be the sort of like the thing that propels the rest of, gets the interest, propels the rest of the campaign. So Jason and I have been working together on this. He's an expert in operating museums, knows his stuff. He came with me over to Brazil to have a look at the DC-8, and we've formulated a plan to, over time, bring these artifacts back and over time rebuild them and hopefully get them to some sort of display, level of display. My motivation is just to save these aircraft. I've got no expertise in displaying them or doing anything like that, but I figure if you don't have them, you can't do anything, right? So to me, they can sit somewhere for 30 or 40 years. It really doesn't bother me as long as we've got them. So my laser beam task now is to try and over the next, I'd say it's a 5 to 7 year project. I'm into year 3 now. So far, we've just been going on social media, very powerful tool. I don't think we could have done this without social media coming along and the way that people can connect with a campaign like this, not just here, but all around the world. And people are fascinated with this now all around the world. When I was in Brazil and we made movies, because to show everything as movies, you've got to, communicate. I think we had close to 70,000 video views in that week, which is a huge amount of views. It really is for something like this. I went to Manaus Airport and met the management. They gave us a $2,000 helicopter ride just because they're so impressed with our enthusiasm. So it's amazing to see how people engage with this. So at the local level, very soon I'm writing to the new CEO of Air New Zealand, Mr. Foran, who's, I think, come over from Walmart. But I think it's time for Air New Zealand to step up. They don't have a brand or a context without this history. It's very important that it's preserved for future generations. What I'm going to ask them to do specifically is to fund the 737, because we can buy that right now and we can ship it. It's the easiest one to ship because it's the smallest. Also the wings are manageable. On the Douglas aircraft, the wings are one piece. So that DC-8 wing is one 165-foot long piece. And taking it apart is problematic because it was never designed to come apart in any way. Boeing are different. They make their wings left, right, and they join at the wing body join. And it's easy. You can take one off one side, one off the other, and sort of run them together, and it doesn't take up too much space. So that's the first obvious one to do. We sort of had an unofficial approach to them a couple of years ago. They said they weren't interested. But that was under an earlier regime, and we were a little newer in the game then. So that's the next big move is to go to Air New Zealand and get some support there. And I think we probably stopped the 737 being destroyed by about a month, because he was going to pull it to pieces. And there's no reason for this guy, Jenks Caldwell III, to maintain it on his property. So I managed to stop that, and talking with the other owners and creating the relationships is guaranteed that they're not going to be interfered with in the meantime. And that is the first move of this. So that's being done, and that all came about through donations, traveling, making content, and all the things that go with that. So the first stage is being done. So now we're moving into, well, I don't know how many stages there will be, but I guess phase 2 of actually trying to get some of the metals back. And that will be first done with the engines. It's an interesting game because you've got to come across credible. The first reaction I get is, you'll never be able to do that. Or, that's way too big. In fact, it's interesting, I've noticed, because I've been involved with museums overseas and some of the filming work I've done, that there's reasonably big thinking. And one thing I've realized here is New Zealanders aren't very good, I hate to say it, at big thinking. They like little things, small things. We can deal with that. As soon as you start talking about things like this, say, oh, you can't do that, it's too big. But actually it is quite doable. If you break it down into set piece moves and what you've got to do, you get the engineering drawings so you know how to take them apart, You find out how the best way to ship them, which we've done, roll-on, roll-off ships, and knowing now that I do the cost of freight, it's actually quite doable. So my big job has been persuading people that we can actually do it. Now I've got to the point where we've got these aircraft saved, they're going to be interfered with, that we know the owners, that we've shown the pictures, we've got deals and everything on them, that people are starting to say, maybe these guys can do something here. So I'm starting to see a bit of an upswing in support. But I think in the end, we've got 4,000 supporters on Facebook. In the end, and I've said to our supporters, it might actually end up being up to us. And it's my and a few other people's job to make the case and to tell the stories that go behind these aircraft to get that sort of support. So that's what we're trying to do. I think it's kind of like doing God's work. Because if we don't do this now, they'll never be there. And also I've got I was thinking the other day, the sneaking suspicion too, that if we leave it too long for getting support, anything fossil fuel powered is being so demonized these days that it probably won't be too long before people start to look at these as evil polluters from a bygone era. And then your support or enthusiasm starts to slip again. So I think, you understand what I'm saying, right? You get that feeling that could happen. So the time to move is now. So that's what we're trying to do. There's about 4 of us involved, and certain people around the world will be helping us. And I'm hoping that we can see something coming over the wharves. It won't be over the threshold because they won't be flying. And into that museum, even just to be stored. Even broken up in storage, these things are great exhibits. People still want to come and see. That's the plane. Someone mentioned Don Nichols just before. I interviewed Don a couple of years ago. There's an hour-long interview with Don on our Facebook page about flying the DC-8. He told me about the low-flying incident over Newlands that he was involved in. NZC, that aircraft. So there's a story right there. But you come and look at this plane, it's more than just a plane, it's a lot of history. NAD, first commercial jet service in the country. I mean, that changed this country. So there are all those things. So it's very important to get it done. I love coming and evangelizing. I like to come and evangelize this and call for any support, donations. It all helps. We've been doing this for a while now, so we sort of know kind of what we're doing. And I think with the right amount of enthusiasm and effort and just keeping at it, that we'll probably, not going to get all of them, but we'll get some of them. I know we'll get the DC-8, I know we'll get that. And I know we'll get the 737, because those deals are done on price, and I know how to move them. The others, we'll see, but even that would be fantastic. The next thing to do would be to visualize how they can be displayed. With the modern technology, we can do incredible support displays of these aircraft with video and with animation and with costumes. And my friend who owns Kadima Lounge Suites down there in Seaview, Matt Hancock, I said to him, I showed him some pictures of the upholstery of these things. I said, could you recreate these? No problem. Just give me the pictures. We'll do all the seats. We can bring them back to how they used to look. So it's all doable. So hopefully one day we can sort of open the doors at Wanaka and people can come in and see 1 or 2 or more of these aircraft. Maybe in the next 10 or 15 years, I don't care how long, it really doesn't bother me as long as it happens, that we'll be able to save them, they'll be there, and I think that they will go on and be a very successful attraction in the future. I've gone to a lot of museums around the world, like probably many of you have, and there's nothing like seeing little kids under a 747 looking up, and going, wow. They do. I've seen it. And we can have that as well. And I think it'd be very important before it's too late. So that's what we're doing. We're calling it Bring Our Birds Home. There's 6 of them, but the only one's remaining. And I'm sure there'll be a spread of occupations in the airline represented right here. Probably some have flown some of these aircraft, flown on them, fixed them, booked tickets on them, I don't know. But there'll be personal connections to these aircraft. And the characters, of course. I mentioned Warren Schrader, Alan Kenning. Remember Alan?
Yes.
Met Alan a few years ago. What a great guy. He gave me so many pictures, so many great stories. he's got to be part of that story as well. Of course, we wouldn't have the 7-3 without Alan, right? So all those things. So I know it's been a bit. I'm trying to get everything into the time frame, but that's what we're doing. It's a lot to explain. I hope that you guys agree with me that it's something really worth doing. One roll of the dice here, one shot. We've got to make it happen now. So any way you can support us. Got some flyers which I'll leave. We've got all the information on, and keep an eye out on the Facebook page. And every chance we get, obviously I'm connected with the media, we get the story out there. I've got TVNZ film crew probably going to come to me to California to pick up the engines because they want to film that. I've got footage to support that, so that gets the interest going. So that's what we've been doing, and it's been great to be able to come and explain that and to tell you about why and how and what the goal is. So bring our birds home, and yeah, the 6 aircraft types that really built this country. I think it's fair to say that. Yeah. Someone's got to do it. It's me.